Hey, what's up guys, it's me, Thrash Maniac 99, and as you can tell, I don't have my headset anymore. My headset actually broke. So for now, I am using a Logitech stand mic for now, until I get a new headset, which probably won't be for a little while. So, yeah, and before I get started, I do want to say thank you all who showed support and love for me in my time of need of what happened to my brother. We just had his funeral today, and then we had a party in celebration of his life. And now that all that is taken care of, I am now back on my feet, back to create content for you guys out there who love my channel. So thank you all so much for subscribing and watching. We are back for Thrash reviews, and it's been since Sunday since I did a review, when I did the review of Dream Theater's The Astonishing. But now I am back to review one of the most highly anticipated underground metal releases of the year, and that is AKROASIS, or AKROASIS, or AKROASIS, or whatever it'd be called. I call it AKROASIS, by German progressive technical death metal legends Obscura. I call them legends now because really all their albums are absolutely fantastic, you know, from Retribution to Cosmogenesis. Their last album, Omnivium, was a masterpiece. And because that album was a masterpiece, people wondered, whenever they make their next record, in this case being AKROASIS, how would they be able to live up to that hype? And before I get into the review, I do want to say that this still is solid work, so that's just a little brief explanation, but let's get into the review. And of course, as I do these reviews, pretty much reviewing certain tracks that I really love, the bookend tracks, so on and so forth. So the opening track on AKROASIS is Sermon of the Seven Suns. And right off the bat, we get typical Obscura, starting out with like really hyper speed blast beats, with neoclassical guitar sounds, with like an introductory guitar solo trade-off with guitarist and vocalist Stefan, and then it just continues to rip throughout the rest of the 7-minute track, 7+ minute. And right off the gate, you can definitely tell Obscura still have tricks, a lot of good tricks up their sleeve. Considering that Stefan, during the downtime of Obscura, was doing guitars and vocals for the death tribute band Death to All, which is a tribute band of the great pioneer of death metal, Death. Rest in peace, Chuck Schuldiner. So yeah, Stefan definitely learned a little bit from doing those tours and decided to imply some of the death elements into a track such as Sermon of the Seven Suns, with like the real proggy technical style combined with some neoclassical influences from like people like Yngwie Malmsteen, Jason Becker, and even bands like Atheist and Cynic that were doing that kind of style before Obscura did. The next track I want to talk about is the title track, AKROASIS. And this is a short track. It's only about 4.5 minutes. It is the shortest song on the album, but it's still absolutely monumental. And Stefan's vocals kind of go back and forth between like a raspier, grittier style and the lower register death growl. And this track was more or less that grittier style to him, but still keeps that technical progressive death metal vibe all throughout this track, and actually has a bit of that little like haunting atmosphere behind it. And that's really been like a theme for Obscura, is having a bit of a haunting atmosphere behind their chaos and their precision and everything in between, and this track certainly proves that. The next track I want to talk about is Ode to the Sun, and this is probably one of, if not my favorite track on the album. This song really was like it was probably the most straightforward track that was on this album, whereas prog bands, whether it's prog rock, prog metal, go for the more atypical song structures instead of going to verse, chorus, bridge, solo, verse chorus parts that you would normally hear in normal bands. But this kind of had a bit of that a little bit in the format that they were going for. And this was a pure death metal track. And it was brutal and still haunting, atmospheric. And it was just an incredible thrill ride. But speaking of incredible thrill rides, that leads us to the last track of the album. And that is Weltziel, or Weltziele, something German or something like that. And this is a 15-plus minute track. Now, pretty much this song incorporates everything that Obscura has done in their career and just does it times 10. Like, this is probably one of the best songs Obscura has ever written, ever recorded, and it was one of those masterpiece tracks that's just not going to leave your head for a while. This is pretty much, if you took the core elements of Obscura, combine it with a little bit of Opeth and Dream Theater, not in terms of sound, but like how they present the opening acoustic guitars with that dark atmosphere behind it, like you would hear on Dream Theater or Opeth, and have that bass behind it. And another thing to point out, too, with this record, the fretless bass is just slicing and dicing throughout every song on this album, and it just absolutely ripped. And the fretless bass has always been a big interest of mine ever since I listened to Individual Thought Patterns by Death. Hearing Steve DiGiorgio play that fretless bass, it just made me think, wow, the fretless bass really has a lot of meaning and power behind it. And Obscura takes that and does it very well, kind of in honor of those players that played the fretless bass, like Steve DiGiorgio, Sean Malone from Cynic, who played a fretless, and so many others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But with this track, great way to close out a fantastic album. So overall, AKROASIS, another great release by a phenomenal band that's been on the rise really ever since Cosmogenesis. Like, Retribution came out in like 2004, self-released, but then it was released fully in 2006. And that was a really underground release. They didn't start to get a bit of a buzz until Cosmogenesis came out in 2009, but when Omnivium came out in 2011, that's when people started to recognize how truly incredible this band really is. Now, to the big question, did this live up to the hype? Absolutely. Do I think it surpassed previous albums? Not really. In my opinion, this is probably their third best record out of the four. To me, it didn't capture that same spark as Omnivium or even Cosmogenesis. But still, that doesn't take away the fact that this is an incredible album. 92 out of 100. There was nothing about this album that I found to be complaint-worthy whatsoever. And there you have it. So another contender for Album of the Year already. So far this year, the 5 records I have reviewed: the Megadeth album, which was very good, the Abbott album, another very good album, Borknagar, an amazing record, Dream Theater, amazing, and Obscura, another great release so far this year. So far, no duds or disappointments have been hitting my way, at least not yet. The more albums I reviewed, there may be another list at the end of the year that we'll talk about, and that is the top 5 worst albums of the year, or 10, depending on what else comes out in the year and I've listened to it and I find it to be kind of poor or terrible. We'll see. This year has been expanding as far as album reviews going for me, because there's going to be a lot coming out this year that may be big, that might be big time buzzes, debuts, so on and so forth. As far as when the next review and what the next review will be, just gotta keep watching. But recap, AKROASIS by Obscura gets a 92 out of 100. Currently, this would be number 3 on the Album of the Year list. But until next video, peace.